Hi everyone, welcome back. This is I got Rob and Harry with me. Three. This is the first time we're doing three of us, I believe, right? Yeah.
Yep.
This is. Let me check my notes here. This is the week 11. So this is the 11th episode of this year. I know cadence is sort of messed up. We are all sort of busy, but we are trying to get at your rhythm soon. So hopefully we will see this frequently coming in consistent order. Um, I don't even know how many people watches this podcast, but I honestly don't care. One of the reasons for building this is to, or starting this is for me to keep up with AI and have a place where sort of practitioners sort of get together and build. So and and most of the stories that we cover here are not what viral. Most of the stories that we thought was interesting and sort of affects how we build software. And another personal reason is obviously this gives me opportunity to hang out with Harry and Rob. I mean, and learn thing or two. With that said, how you guys been?
Great. The last one that I had to miss, I was going to be here, but I had my layover. The plane had to get towed off the runway. We landed,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Well, we just have to sit here. Somebody has to come get us." So I missed my connection because of that. So
Oh, speaking of that, I know you were there at the AI Engineer World Fair. Am I saying it right? AI Engineer World Fair conference.
yeah,
So
correct.
so tell us about that. What went there?
Yeah, everyone was there. So like anyone doing anything with AI and engineering from a software perspective, lots of builders. So there was just like so many tracks. I think there was like 500 sessions, and you basically had to find your way. Like whatever you were interested in, go follow that track. Figure out who the interesting speakers were that you liked. So a lot of the perspective that I had was basically the things that I was interested in and following. Um, but obviously there were keynotes with some common themes. So one of the things that I took away was just people aren't thinking big enough. Be unreasonably ambitious was the term. I
Mm,
heard from several presenters, Mike Krieger at Anthropic, Theo, the YouTuber, Gary Tan. It was just like, there's so much you can do now, and you just need to push the LLMs and try to do something crazy. Like Jeff Huntley the other day, he was rewriting Svelte in uh, Lean 4, which is a
mm.
verification language. It's a formal verification language, but you can program in it as well. So he was like rewriting Svelte in Lean 4. And I don't know if it'll work, but it's like you never think to do that in the past. Just like whatever crazy idea you have, just go do it and fail. If you fail, then save that
Mhm.
and try it. And the next time a model comes out and see if it works. So, if you try something crazy and it doesn't work, then you have something to try with the new model. So a lot of people were talking about this, you know,
Okay.
how ambitious can you be in what you're trying to do and
I
push
heard
the
about this. I mean, I think this makes total sense. I always been very tempted about this kind of things. This or Haskell. I feel like choice of programming language is becoming very up to me at least. Types and proofs. If it's baked in the language, that means LLM going to make less mistakes. You're going to move faster, right?
Yeah. There was also a recent, I don't know, controversy because one of the core contributors of Haskell like started developing on Python instead of Haskell just because of the compilation time and not being agent friendly.
Yeah.
So it's nothing's perfect, but I would say in general, like functional languages, formal methods, like that's the direction that I've been heading. And that was actually one of the things that I dug into. I really liked Eric Meyer's talk. It was one of the
Mm,
keynotes. He wrote F sharp. He created F sharp, TypeScript. He's created several languages and or been influenced or been part of them. But his big thing right now is using formal methods. um, in order to validate before a tool call is called, so that you
Mm,
can know that it's not going to destroy a database, prove it mathematically that it won't before you actually
yeah.
execute it.
Mm,
So sets and type theory, all that play into it. But yeah, what you have up is a good representation. That top right is auto mine that Eric Meyer had created. But so the top ones are trying to check before you actually execute, and the bottom are after. And
mm,
so using a neural network or using formal methods, or is the columns. And so you see a lot of people doing LLM as a judge, which is the bottom left.
right,
I'm sorry.
right.
Um, and it's just not reliable. You actually have to like
Yeah,
create an
yeah,
eval for the judge
right. It's just
to
pushing the
know.
problem to a different layer. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. You still have
yeah.
to like maintain a LM as a judge, and then like a formal judge, which tries to judge it ahead of time.
And the
Sorry,
judge is another
after,
judge.
yeah. But
Yeah.
if you're trying to figure out if it did something bad afterwards, it already
Mm,
broke your database. It already deleted it, instead of
mm,
validating
yeah.
ahead of time. So there
So
was lots of things
yeah.
on security at the
Hmm.
conference as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody's talking about that. Um, I am looking at your notes here. Tell us about. I mean, we've been hearing that not being in the valley. I've been hearing that people have built software factories. They don't have engineers anymore.
Yeah,
The shops run 24/7. What's happening there?
there's a lot of hype. Um, that's the hype in reality. Some say it's in alignment, some say it's not. Um, I think you still need the lights on. The dark factories aren't really there yet. It's close. If we're actually able to use formal methods to like validate the output, the code output of models, I think you can get there. Um, there was Benoit from Google DeepMind was talking about he started in assembly, and then once compilers came around, he didn't trust the output of the compilers, and then eventually everybody just trusted it because it's good. It's good. It's better than a human can do what the compiler is outputting. And then you had then you weren't managing memory anymore, so you had garbage collection. Nobody trusted the garbage collector to manage the memory, and so you just had these series of things where people cared about it, and then eventually it got good enough where people don't care about what the output is. And his where he thinks in a year you will not care what the output in terms of what the code is output of an LLM, because you will just trust it. So mathematically prove that it
Mm,
solves the problem, and then you really
mm,
focus on the hard problem, which is like saying what you want. Like that is the hardest problem, like creating the specification. And so now you can prove that what you asked it to do is correct, but you may have asked it to do the wrong thing or
mm,
not considered something when it does what you say. So it's like natural
mm,
language to specification,
mm.
and what they're going to solve is specification into implementation. So you still need that natural language into specification that is going to be the hard problem. And you're essentially just compiling your code
Yeah, I
generous.
mean that's so relatable. Like honestly, like I think the true moment when you can switch the lights off in the factory is when you can trust it, right? But for that, you need to build the factory first. And the again, this is just a question. Again, just want to get your thoughts on what you got as a general, um, how do I say, the mood and the conference. My personal take is that no matter how smart the LLMs get, there have to be systems in place which actually govern that LLM, and that's a lot of work, which is actually core software engineering. There's not much magic to the LLM itself, and that's what it takes to build a factory. But I also hear the other side of the room, which is like, the models get good enough, you don't really have to care. Just trust the model, right? Like I don't know which way the crowd is headed. So what was your read of the conference?
I think software development is going away, but software engineering is alive and well. So, like you said, you have to build the systems around it, the processes, the life cycle. SDLC is still alive and well in terms of creating software. It's just like where you automate, and the human has to be in the loop at some point, whether it's planning what you do, making sure it works. But I do think you might not have to look at the code. You just build the systems so that it builds it the way that you would expect, and you can trust it more over time. And it is that engineering, getting back to computer science and engineering the system so that you actually get what you expect. So I
I mean,
agree with you.
got it. Are people actually still reading code? I'm just genuinely curious because I think at some point you are shipping at a fast enough pace that you forget that whether you are really reading the code. But what is your again, I'm not in the valley, so I'm just trying to understand like how people are. Are they reading code anymore, or have they like just surrendered to the system?
It's both. It really is like what problem you're solving. So I think like Dex Horthy, they had a loops debate. So
Hmm.
then they had two sides. It was like uh, you still need to look at the code, and you can just run loops and generate code. And I think just like letting it go works well for Greenfield, for web applications. But like when you get into more harder problems like aerospace or
Hmm.
healthcare, uh, you have to look at the code. Like it's absolutely necessary. It just depends like what you're building, what your domain space is, and it varies. And so I think a lot of times when you have people like arguing online, they're both right. They're just solving
Hmm.
different problems, and
Yep.
I think that's what you're seeing. That's what's happening. Uh, but the lights should be on. That's my opinion.
Yeah, for
We're
the
not
Yeah,
moment
ready
at
for it.
least.
I want to give a shout out to this one. This I think this is where I heard first. I think Strong DM is a company, AI
Mm-hmm.
company. I think they completely use software factories, and this is where I initially heard the term, and I saw this. I mean, I shared the link with the guys. I saw this sort of rules they have. The code must not be written by humans, which is probably true already. I think they're already getting to the point a code must not be reviewed by human. I guess that's what we are talking about. And this blogs goes into a depth of to achieve this or how they have achieved this is purely software engineering. I mean, this is like someone designing it to, we're going to mock up all the SaaS API calls that we are making so that we're going to have a clear harness that when the code runs, we have a good enough test suite so that with the test pass, we know the code works. Um,
Yeah.
but getting there between based on our real experience is super hard. I mean, it's a
Oh,
super hard problem to
it's
solve.
It's
it's
also a 6 month problem because you don't actually know that that doesn't work until you're 6 months into a code base, and no one has mental alignment for what that code does. And
exactly.
That's my biggest problem. This comprehension debt is my biggest problem. The more you distance yourself from the product, I mean, how do you even know what right is? I mean, what is supposed to, how is supposed to work? And,
yeah, I mean that's what
and
code review is for, is mental alignment.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
when you
mean,
go in there
this,
and debug a production issue, when you have to like uh, your people are beating down your door and things are on fire and you're trying to figure it out, and you have to figure out what the code is doing
yeah,
to even know what's happening. You have no mental alignment, and it's just drifted, and you're not able to like actually engineer the system because you don't know what the code is doing. Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually came across the Phoenix architecture last week or the week before, and
Mm,
combining that with a couple of other concepts that I've been working on. It's To me that's interesting. It's basically setting up a lot of the business logic and all the domain knowledge that builds up over time is in the code base. That's why people are afraid to like just scrap a code base, is
yeah,
because it actually represents something that actually should be documented. And so you really need to extract those invariants out that are in the code base so that you're able to regenerate the code from
yeah,
a base set of documentation that can also validate. So validations that sit outside of the code that you can verify that you're actually solving that problem. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Oh,
that's the direction I've been going down. Is I've been
yeah, I know that
experimenting
totally
with
makes
like
sense. Totally
wiping
makes
out
sense. I
the
heard
code
about that.
base and
Mhm.
rebirthing it from these assets.
I know, Harry, you are pretty big into this open spec space. I mean, is it? I mean, it aligns with what you've been thinking, correct?
Yeah, I think just like taking off from what Rob was calling out earlier, right? I think the biggest problem right now is stating what you want, like rather like intent
Yeah,
articulation, so to speak.
yeah,
And then once
yeah.
you have that and the text, how do you even take that text and make that verifiable that actually the system built it? So this is one of my recent experiments. It's just a video I put out like based on what I learned. So
Hello and
OpenSpec
welcome to this
again,
video.
yeah,
About of it.
it's got
Sorry, go ahead.
audio. Yeah. So basically, what it's got is the plain markdown. I kind of capture the specifications in Gherkin format, and then I have the LLM first generate acceptance tests out of it. And that's again, there's a lot of harness which goes in, which makes sure that the spec and the tests are in line. Then
Mm,
that is the governing criteria for building the app so that the agent cannot lie its way saying, I'm done with it. So that's why we have those two rules. And again, going back to the factory link which you showed Neil
mm,
earlier, which is
mm,
the
mm,
code must never be modified directly. So that's the
mm.
first rule. And the second is if you're not reviewing it, then it better obey the spec. So the obey the spec part is what you're looking at here. So there is no way I can go and modify spec as well as code in the same turn, in the same commit. So at least have to like spec it first, then leave it to the factory to implement it. So that's
Yeah.
like, this is my small little experiment of a factory so that like, there's enough confidence to say that the text is actually translating into proper code.
Mm, mm. It's
I
pretty
love
cool.
it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think the
This,
Phoenix architecture, Rob, like I think Chad's work and what his conversation with, I think the gentleman from Tessel recently about Phoenix, I think it's really, really the crux of it, right? So if you have the spec, then the code itself can rise from the ashes. So technically,
Exactly.
you just don't
yeah,
need the code. You can regenerate it from the spec.
When I
yeah.
came
Again,
across it, I was like, I was saying this last year in July. I was like, I don't care about code anymore. It's not a pet. I was generating integrations. That's what our product was doing. And I was like, yes, these are not, it's just like with DevOps and Docker, how you no longer have servers that are pets.
Mm,
They are now just cattle. That's how I've been treating code. And this like clicked. That was like the small concept. And then the Phoenix architecture, like builds it out and make
yeah,
it's more well developed thought around it. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so I know you're a big fan of this local AI. Tell us more. I mean, this is something that I'm really, really interested about. Not giving away my secrets to Anthropic anymore.
no, I think that's it's a trend. I've seen like Alex Karp at Palantir had a
Right.
rant on CNBC about it.
I watched that too.
Um, yeah, and it's not just that, but there's just a general sense that I think with Fable 5 not having access to the model mythos, that people got a little more concerned that it may be regulated away, and you may have to have alternative.
Yeah.
So there is a big momentum in the enterprise as well as just like hobby people buying their own GPUs, running their own models, and training for their specific use case because you don't need Frontier for everything. And I think so. One of the workshops I went to, there was a whole local AI summit while I was there. Um, so Ahmed Osman, he has a company where he's trying to help people um, run local AI easier. So they have an ODS system which I ran on my GPUs that I have at home, which is it's a recent thing for me to buy GPUs and run it. So uh, his little script like installed all this stuff on there. It was like ready to go. It chose the model for me based on my hardware. But one of the other interesting thing, yeah,
This is
this,
the one, right?
yeah, that's it, yeah. Um, so Osmantic, that's his company, and this is all free, open source. and it will choose based on your hardware. So you can run this on your Mac, you could run it on iMac Mini, you could run it on Windows, on a Linux server, one that has GPUs or just CPUs, and it'll help set it up for you and give you some options
Mm.
just to play around with it. Before I had this, I think I used um, the Llama CPP,
Llama, yeah, me too. Yeah.
and I installed. I think Gemma 4 would fit on my the 24B fit on my laptop,
Mm.
and then just pi.dev because I would be in a building, a metal building for kid stuff, and continue that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Um, but there's like lots of different options of what you
Oh,
can
this
do.
is so cool. When you told me first time, I got super excited about this. This is the way.
I learned
Makes
so
full
many things
sense.
already, like
Yeah.
running your own inference. There's
Yeah.
just so many different options to fit it. You only have so much memory,
Right.
and where do you want to spend it? Do you want to spend it on like tokens per second? So
Yeah.
I'm getting around 40 tokens per second right now,
Okay.
running on my GPUs. I think I started around 24 tokens per second or something. So
Okay.
there's
How
things you
did you
can
improve
tweak.
it? Give us a sneak peek. How did you improve that?
So there's some trade-offs. So how you want to do caching, how you quantize, and how you
Mm.
quantize the cache as well makes a difference. Whether you turn on vision or not. So like when I had Gemma 4 running, it has vision, so that takes up more memory as well.
Right.
But then there's also like draft models where it
Mm.
will pre-fill answers. It'll use a smaller model to try to pre-fill the tokens.
Mm.
So all that helps like get to the answer quicker. But you only have so much memory, and you have to like make the trade-off of like
Right.
where you're tweaking it.
Right.
Um, because you same with like cache size. So like what your input, how many
Yeah.
input tokens that you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
send. That's another one. Like I wasn't
So,
using the full
so you know
token
what? This
limit.
is this is the world we need. Give us a base model. Don't make it too smarter for random stuff that I don't care about, so that I can take it, fine tune it the way I want, and run my app. Right? That's the way to do it. Now they're building these giant models, to control the data. That's why the whole argument with, maybe we should pull up the story right now since we're talking about this whole Kimi 3, and I don't know, Harry, you are following that or not. There's a huge debate going on now. Obviously, K3 is the open source, and Frontier is like 3 months behind now. The shrinking, the window is really, really shrinking. Now there is a whole argument going on, is that, oh, they've been using Fable to distill their model and learn quickly. It
There's
goes
no
back
way.
to the goes back to the argument of like,
Fable wasn't
we
even
have done.
available. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not available. And if you talk about privacy and pirating stuff, I mean, we have all done that a little bit when we were training our models. So,
No,
I mean,
I
I
mean, honestly, I think coming to the model capability itself, right? Like what Rob said, you don't really need the most frontier model for everything. I think we've discussed this in the past also, Neil, where like technically if you're like specking something out or if you're researching, that's where you need a frontier model. And most of the other time, even if it's a quantized model sitting on Unsloth or something on my local machine, that's good enough. And maybe even if it's token per second is not that great, I can leave it running overnight, build something for me and come back. So that's still okay. So again, like, the debate of whether you're getting really capable models from like an open source. Well, if you have it, great. Let them fight it out. But if you're getting as a consumer, that's good for us, I guess. So,
yeah.
but
No, I mean,
Exactly.
it's good as long as we have to keep this open voice model coming in.
yeah.
I think there is a sort of a race going on through some of the companies, quote unquote, trying to regulate the market to win the market, which is probably not a good idea.
I think it's the cat is out of the box. I don't think you're gonna get it back in. So it's more like, yeah, you can
Yeah,
regulate your way out of it, but
there's going to be more wild west. Rather, there is a risk about using. I mean, cybersecurity is one of the risks. I mean, it's real. So I think there makes sense of having some sort of security protections around thing, maybe guidelines or something. But if you ban it that way, people are, like you said, Harry, people are going to start using it, and then it will be wild west. I think
yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
problem.
I one of the predictions that Ahmed made was GLM 5.2 was fairly new then. Now there's
Mm,
Kimi K3. Uh,
hmm
but in 18 months, we will have that level of knowledge that fits on like a 32 gigabyte GPU.
mm.
And that's a conservative estimate because they keep compressing the
Yeah.
knowledge.
I think
GPT
there was this
4.0
project called
knowledge.
Colibri recently. I probably ping the link. You can search for it, GLM 5.2 and Colibri. So basically, GLM 5.2 is a large model, right? Of course, open weighted. But in
Yeah,
order to load it within your own machine, this guy started streaming certain sections of it so that you don't really need to load everything up front. The rest of it runs off of your SSD, if you will. It is slow, but really
hmm
doesn't matter. You got 5.2 GLM running on your local machine, so what more can you ask for? Sorry, I cut you off,
exactly.
Rob, there. So yeah, but I
Is
just
this a repo?
this is the one. This is the one.
Yeah. I mean, I've been so is this so they use MOE, so that sort of makes sense. I mean, I think the MOE is that what is it called? A group of experts or
Mixture of experts.
mix of thank you,
Yeah,
mix of experts. I feel like this is it's a really good architecture, right? I mean, in a layman terms, based on your question, it figures out which experts. So not necessarily the whole model needs to be processed on every request. That's how you can make it smaller per request, right?
Yeah.
Um,
There was
uh,
also some perspective, like '03 was a year ago.
mm,
Like that, it's only a year ago that we had '03 was like top of the line. And now we're like, that's ridiculous. That's nothing now. And
that's
oh
something. Yeah,
04 fits in 2 billion parameters on your phone, like that,
yeah, yeah,
or 40, not oh 04, 40, like
yeah,
that fits on your phone now, that same level of intelligence. And so
yeah,
if you think forward, like, and that continues,
yeah.
it's only a matter of time where they can compress that and get that same level of knowledge
Right,
on your
right.
GPU, your phone, whatever.
So speaking of this open source model, I want to share the story that I saw was interesting. Inkling, this is a model. First model came out of Thinking Machines. This company's made huge bust 3 months back. Raised the largest seed round or something. I think the ex OpenAI employee started this company, Mira Murali, if that name rings a bell. I think she's the founder of this company. They open source a new model, which I thought is a brilliant strategy. I mean, to fight all this fighting between China versus US, open source versus, if US can have any US company can have an open source model that's at par, that sort of wins the debate. So they're following the same mission or strategy that we've been talking about, making it open source. And they've been claiming this, which I thought was really nice, that, hey, this is not the smartest model out there. Like you said, Harry, right? We don't need that. But this is a model that developers can take it, fine tune it the way they want, and use it for their purposes. So that's sort of their sort of general idea. I thought this sort of pretty cool. I wanted to play with it. I haven't created an account, but have you guys looked into that at all? Tinker.
I've just started today. I think it's part of Open Code Zen. I
Mhm.
just tried the. I haven't got the model yet locally, and I was also wondering if I should get the contest version of it through Unsloth. Just try it out locally on my machine, and then maybe get it through Open Code Zen subscription for the
So
hosted
this,
version.
I see. This uses the same MOE version that we've been talking about, like GLM and K3. It has 900, and I don't think this parameters mean
Yeah,
anything
it's
to
a
me, but it
huge,
has a
huge thing.
huge,
Yeah.
huge model.
Yeah.
But it has this mixture of experts thing again, which brings it that, but it only activates around 41 billion parameters each token. So when you actually use it, it's much smaller than that. So your Calibri could be an interesting solution for this as well. Um, yeah, I mean, the race is becoming sort of interesting now. It's not about what capable model. People are essentially looking for an open source, good enough model that I can safely use for my projects, right?
I think the most resonating part, Neil, is last time I think you mentioned, Rob, we were discussing about the ideas that we share with the models, right? Like we might be
Mm,
working on something like novel, and there's actually nothing preventing like companies which give us models from taking those ideas, and we don't even know if they're taken, right? I mean, I'm not being very how do you say, protective, my precious sort of thing about it, not the golem. But then these are genuine concerns. Like if you're working on something that's very highly
Mhm.
secretive, you don't want that to
Mm.
leak out. You want that in a box.
The
Local
the
models and all
traces
of these is really important.
the
Yeah.
traces are the value, like
Yeah.
that, and you're giving them your traces of it, the
And
agentic.
I think Fable 5 says that they are keeping your prompts and data, isn't it? For 30 days for
Yes,
safety or something.
yeah, in case somebody does something bad. Yeah, exactly. But no,
So,
that is why you should go with open models, is you
yeah.
control. You should also be collecting all of your agent traces, like
Hmm.
coding agents, whatever. I was using Moraine, Moraine,
Hmm.
recently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that it stands up ClickHouse on your computer, but
Oh,
it does. You could use a remote ClickHouse as well, but it does like capture everything for you. And the thing that I like is you can actually use it for search. So if I'm
Mm.
doing something in Codex and in Cloud Code, I can say use Moraine to look at my other thread, and I can pick it up from between the across the coding agents because I'm saving all of my traces into a database. But I recommend everyone do that, because if you think about it, you're really just like wasting those tokens. Like you send a request and you don't save them; they just like get deleted. They go off into the ether. Cloud Code by default only saves it for 30 days unless you actually change the setting. Um, so you should be like collecting all that knowledge, especially if you're a business, especially internally. You should be collecting those traces. It does build up over time, but you need to be extracting the knowledge that you're spending those tokens already. So you should extract and summarize and understand how people are using it, because some people are using it different than other people, and who's doing it well. All that comes out of the traces, uh, to
how do
create
you store it,
diaries
Rob?
and
Like,
traces.
where do you store your traces?
Well, right now it's in ClickHouse, like as part of
Okay, got it.
Moraine. Um, that it made it easy. I thought about building something, but it's not something I really want to
You
maintain.
you used to use Langsmith too, right? I mean, I use Langsmith for some
Yeah,
of the conversation.
Langsmith, Langfuse. I really like Arise Phoenix.
Mm.
Okay.
Uh, I really like what they're doing. Their people. I
I
think
mean,
Lori Boss was one of the things I put in our show notes as well. Uh, everything everything he writes is good. I would like check his stuff out. He
yeah.
works at Arise.
Okay. So this is a general, I mean, theme for anyone out there using Cloud Code agents or chat canvas, anything should collect your traces because for a couple of reasons. A, obviously learn how your company or employees are using your AI products. And second is this becomes a tremendous sort of source for your eval so that you can feed back in saying, well, I've seen constantly these agents are making mistakes when people ask this question. Maybe there
Yep.
is a context issue. Maybe you should load that up. So lots of learning happens through that.
Yeah, not only from your products, but also from your coding agents as well,
Right.
Hmm.
which a lot of
Right.
people don't think about.
So this is what I was thinking in general. This is my benefit, my question in here. So when lately my cloud sessions are becoming more frustrating. I yell at them and all that. I mean, I feel like there's tremendous correction goes through these conversations. Is there any tool? I know I can build a skill to do that. Is there anything out there that look at parse conversations and auto updates Claude MD file or agent MD file?
Uh, I don't think there's anything that works well. There's lots of stuff out there.
Okay.
Memory is not a solved problem. It's
Uh,
continuous learning. There actually were
yeah.
tracks on that. Interesting. One of the foremost researchers on that is from Ohio State, OSU, USU. He just raised a big round. He presented out there at AI Engineer. His is more on expertise, so not just generalized memory learning. It's more around expertise where you actually go, instead of broad, you go deep in a particular domain. So like somebody who's working in healthcare, they get very familiar with terminology and what are the processes, what are the norms. Uh, so I know I devolved from your question, but it is not a solved problem, and there are lots of researchers still trying to solve it. And you will see lots of solutions that may work for you or may not.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so specifically for traces, there's like, what do you want to do with them?
Mm.
Like there's like recording them, and then there's like, what do you want to do with them? With Moraine, I'm searching them to try to bring that context back in. But even if you were like continually building up this knowledge base, how are you storing it? Is it, you know, vectors, vector search, or is it like a knowledge graph or ontology, or like what, you have to think about like how you're actually going to use it, not just like how you're collecting it. And it's more important to focus on how you're going to use it, because then you can choose the right solution, because there's lots of different ways to think about that problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think even Claude, Anthropic itself was trying to solve some of this. I'm not sure if this is relevant to what we're discussing, Neil. Like this thing called Auto Dream in Claude, where it tries to summarize your conversations and try to sort of magically, become more personalized based on your last 100 conversation. And there's a certain amount of customization you can do in terms of the dreaming. Again, the analogy here is dreams consolidate your memory. So I guess that's what they're trying to do. But I haven't actually explored how well it works. But
yeah.
yeah, but this is something that I've heard on a podcast. I think it was about, yeah, this
Like,
seems
I mean,
to.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I can't be the only one having this problem. Um, Maybe I should update my anchor to do. I feel like there is a learning across that's happening that I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again, and there gotta be a do not. Oh, this gets interesting. So I saw a story. It's not part of our thing here. I forgot to capture. You know how
Mhm.
the models are evolving. Obviously, prompting has to evolve too, right? I mean, I recently saw a post where they said the Claude codes of like system prompt has reduced by 80%, because
Mhm.
instead of telling model this is what you should do, they have focused on, for at least for Fable 5, they said they focus more on don't do this. Apparently saying model not to do not do list is a better than saying do this.
Blacklist it rather than whitelist.
Yeah, exactly that. Thank you.
Always works.
All right. So I know we talked a lot about token. Let's talk about this. I know Harry is very interested about this. So I saw this a Twitter post which I thought was sort of interesting. You just had million bad employees. Keep building dark factories, man. So here is one that I thought was interesting. I mean, this is obviously a little bit out there. I mean, obviously, there was a time where I mean, some companies are still doing token maxing. I saw this graph was interesting. For sort of a percentage of company, your AI is sort of costing more than a human employee. So your software is more expensive than human. And it goes into the details of how we sort of it's not a technology problem; it's an organizational problem. And I liked how we compare a few things. So, for an example, token maxing is like hiring more people to fix a badly defined problem. Uh, Agent
Value
loops are
maxing, that's the new thing.
value maxing. Okay, yeah, you should be focusing on value maxing. Agent loops are more like meetings about meetings. Um, this is what you guys were talking about too, right? I mean, it's all great, but if you kind of clearly define your problem, what you want to solve, I mean, no model, no agent can fix that for you. So agent loops is sort of a stopgap measure for that. For like, I want to do this, go figure it out for me. Wasted tokens are like new headcount bloat. Um, Evals are your new OKR. So there are some interesting analogies in here. Do you guys agree with that?
I kind of, when I read it, I could relate with it, and I can understand why this thought process was there, right? Like, I think most companies also are trying to do this, but
Yeah.
honestly, I kind of disagree also, right? Like,
Okay.
Yeah, token maxing is certainly not a good idea. That I agree with him. But loops is
Mm,
not like certainly meetings about meetings. Like if you formulate your problem well enough, you wanna,
mm,
as you loop, you wanna narrow to a solution, right? There has to be a narrowing function, some sort of a gradient descent or whatever it is,
mm,
whichever form
mm,
of loop you're doing, and then you exit
mm.
out of it. So, but if you just believe that you just loop around the same problem 10 times over, that's like typical definition of insanity. I don't think that's gonna work anyway. But
But it
I
does
think
get
it's
expensive though, right? I mean, it does. You do spend tons of token when you
no,
run
but
loops, though,
it
right?
depends on the nature of the problem. If the nature of the problem is about, let's say, you're trying to, like, I think this is the example I showed you last week, right? Which is I'm
Mm,
trying to improve my SDD workflow, the spec-driven development workflow. I can
mm,
only understand if the workflow is working if I run it through about 10 features. And I
mm,
can't sit and do it manually. So I run it
mm,
through in the loop to test it, right? And I'm trying to have a rubric to measure how this is improving or decreasing, and then I'm trying to feed it with, like, can you use like TDD, can you use like, mutation testing, how does it all help these things, and at the
mm,
end of it I have like some sort of an experiment. So when you can define part of the problem, which is essentially the end, and the means have to be arrived at, and you know how to narrow down on the means, then the looping
mm,
works. And I think
mm.
that's what Jeff Huntley also, I think, Rob, like if you've seen the thing, like, Jeff Huntley's loops are also more about narrowing rather than just generally loop, right? So
Yeah, it
it
needs to
comes back to the
converge.
same point. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it needs to converge. I completely
Yeah,
agree.
I mean,
but
I mean, there is a waste of tokens, though. I mean, but I necessarily don't see that as a problem as long as it stays cheaper. I mean, if this becomes really, really expensive, like
see, and
this article argues that 80% of the token usage doesn't create value.
that's a little arbitrary. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can understand. Like for example, like any typical person that I coach or consult with, right? They
yeah.
are like completely on the model. They don't use even the basic LSP servers or simple tree sitters,
Mm,
like, or even the basics of, like, not trying to redo like unnecessary things without. I mean, use tools rather than the model to do things, right? So
mm,
if you do that, you can save a ton of tokens right there.
yeah.
So if you're talking about a person who's just generally just using the model all out, that
Mm.
might be true. But 80% usage, I mean, yeah, I
I mean, I
get a
don't
sense of it.
care though. I mean, I feel like I don't know whether use like before doing any big task, I do a brainstorming. Like my planning sessions could run longer when I'm having back and forth conversation. I mean, then it
Mm,
spits out 100 lines of plan. I mean, yeah, sure. But I mean, you're right. I mean, I sometimes you will not know. I mean, even before AI too. I mean, we wasted lots of human hours going back and forth
exactly.
without knowing exactly what to build. Right? I mean, I agree. I agree.
Tons of time.
Chance of them going back and forth. No, this is not what I want. This was interesting. The context hoarding and people not sharing their secret because they cared about job security. I don't know how real is that though, but uh,
Explain that to me. The
That's
context sorting.
the saying the employees don't want to teach AI system their secret sauce,
Ah,
so they are
gotcha.
not providing enough information to the context.
You will not take my job.
Which is weird because we talked about this in last pod, and I think there was a new article came out of Anthropic, their CFO also. The trend shows that AI is actually a net creating more jobs now than all the fear that they're going to take over every jobs. It's actually
That
reversed
has
now.
always been my stance. Yeah, that
Yeah.
it
Mm,
will create more
in fact,
jobs. There will be lots of AI engineers.
yeah. I
good,
think
Perry.
the fear with factories for me, right, personally, is it's not about actually whether we can build a factory. My worry is you will build a factory, but you won't be having a supply chain like which actually feeds the factory. You don't have enough
Mm,
features to think of, like, and you're out of ideas, and then that's probably more limiting than the factory itself.
Sounds like
mm,
we both
mm,
experienced that because once I had like the ability to generate very good code, it was like, okay, my backlog's empty. Now I need to keep focused on like deep thinking and like actually doing things that matter to feed that backlog. And
And that's
yeah,
tiring. It's
that
very
becomes
tiring.
that becomes the thing that you're doing, is like keep your backlog well groomed, because you know that you can just generate it. That's I don't know. People will eventually get there because I've done a lot of
Yeah.
token
Yeah, but
maxing.
it's
So
hard. Yeah, it's harder to get there sometimes, and uh, I mean, there is always a bit of unknown. But I don't know how it's going to pan out unless I build it, sort of thing. So, um,
But just to close on this article, right? What I
yeah,
like about it is this framing is good. It's sensational. I think it
yeah,
gets
yeah. It's a
people to
good.
think about it.
Yeah.
But I think the second layer, when you peel that onion, the second layer is when you get the true insight. But this framing is also important so that people actually think about it as a hard hitting, you know,
For all the
thought
consultant
provoking
out,
thing.
yeah, all the consultant out there, this is your new opportunity. Lots of companies are doing it wrong, dude. Nobody's doing AI correctly. I can see that. I totally see consulting companies are jumping on this, and saying,
come
"Hey,
work with us now.
come work with us. Let me build your eval sets. Maybe let me build your OKRs for your agents." Speaker, the next one I want to talk about is this one here, from Demis. He wrote this post. Obviously, I'm a big fan of him. I mean, I feel like out of all the leaders out there, he's been more pragmatic and real. Um, so he talks about the framework for frontier models. So we are part of, so according to him, so here is the context for the story, guys. So according to him, we are sort of in the foothills of AGI, uh, artificial general intelligence. So this is another side of the story, where models going to continue to, like Rob said, models are continue to getting better and better, right? So when the AGI happens, we're going to be talking about singularity. Singularity, and anyone want to take a stab at defining what singularity is? I always sort of struggle. To me, it always feels like machines building machines, and they're building machines is getting better. Is that how you define singularity?
I'll leave that to someone else.
Yeah, I don't know
So
whether this is singularity,
I'm not
but
looking forward to it, whatever it is.
yeah, it's it's Judgment Day or I don't know Terminator sort of situation. But what I worry about, I don't know whether this is called singularity, but at some point we don't know whether the machine is running us or we are running it. Like for example, if we extrapolate on that factory thing, right? I
mm,
don't have enough to feed the machine because I built it, right? And then like now I'm literally a slave to that system, and all I ever do is try to feed that system. And this is something kind of happens to all of us as creators also, right? We have a YouTube channel or something, we know we're building content, but then
yeah.
eventually the content starts taking over like what we actually do, and it changes the way we think. I don't know whether to call that singularity, but at some point, like when our mind share is now controlled by the system we've ever built, and that has
Mm.
taken over, is how I
So
think
our
about it,
our
right?
our our creations sort of getting smarter than us, essentially, right?
Whether I don't know if it's consciously smart, but that becomes like the externalized, I don't know, persona of
I
ours.
know what you're
Right.
saying. So like you have a business problem that you're trying to solve, and use AI to try to solve it, and use AI to create your business plan, and you use it to create your implementation plan and
Yeah.
development plan, and you're you're like feeding everything to the model. Eventually the model becomes where you go to get your task,
Yeah.
because you fed everything to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
model. It's
Yeah.
like, you need
That's
to
You
it.
go
you
do
you
this,
you're
go do
just
my
a
code for
warm
me,
body.
like
You're just a warm body. You're an energy source.
exactly.
Yeah, you hired a junior, and the junior became the master, and then you serve the junior. So
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's yeah, now you
So
are the one doing working for it, because you were asking it to do everything for you, and now you got what you wanted.
yeah, so AGI for all definite. I think Demis has a better definition, which talked about it a
Yeah,
couple of podcasts back,
certainly.
right? I mean, yeah. So Demis definition, AGI was like, and we mentioned this, right? We will know. First of all, there is a huge debate of how do we know. Maybe you are already in AGI. Well, even Elon Musk says, right? We are part of the huge simulation here. So we
Mm-hmm.
don't know whether it's happening. But his definition I thought was very practical. His definition was, hey, take an AI model, freeze the knowledge to, I don't know, pre-World War or something, like when Einstein was a baby, and see whether that model can come up with the general theory of relativity. If it
Mm-hmm.
can, then we sort of, hey, that's a great example of saying it's like a human. They can create new things, new ideas. I think the singularity is sort of the, well, we already got an AGI, so that means a system is producing a better machines and smarter machines. So it's kind of geometric progression. Then
Yeah.
the
Auto.
result of this sort of the result of the sort of the singularity. Obviously, there are two camps to this. One camp is Terminator 2, like Harry said, they will take over. But for that, I always think like, hey, I can always turn off the power. But the other camp is more like, hey, that means a tremendous opportunity. And Demis is, I think, very optimistic about this drug discovery, solving all the problems. It will create whole sorts of opportunity that we never heard of. It's a huge technology revolution.
I think
Um,
there's a dichotomy that is actually
mhm.
being missed here, and it was the concerning thing that the fact that he wrote this is for regulatory capture. He's
Right,
Mm.
right.
advocating putting in place policies, and in the U.S. we talk about P doom. You know, what's your P doom? That's going to take over the
Mm.
world, and all these bad things are happening. Bad actors are going to take advantage of it. That is driven by the researchers pushing those conversations, philosophical conversations. But if you look at research in China, it's around like the capabilities of the model and like what it can do and how it can solve the problem. And we're more worried about the philosophical piece, which ends
We
up
are.
making people more scared of it and then want to regulate it. And the model companies want it to regulate. So like I don't want open source models to be regulated, and that is what's being
Yes.
discussed right now,
Mm.
and that is what Demis is lighting a fire under is
Right, right.
regulate
I
AI,
mean,
even open
it,
source AI, open weights.
yeah, I mean, so model assessment should include rigorous scientific evaluations, cybersecurity, biological threats, and all that. It sort of makes sense at the surface, but you're right. I mean, we haven't seen this things yet. Yet, should we have sort of guidelines around that? Yes, we should. I mean, we don't want to sort of risk here, but capturing the market over. I mean, we are trying to regulate stuff that we probably not even sure of yet. So that is worry. I completely agree with you. Um, but there is
So
lots of
my
discussions going. Go ahead.
Sorry, I think my only contention there is like, this is all depending on saying like the model is getting smarter, the model, right? There's also an equivalent amount of work going into the harness. And if the
Mm,
harness becomes smart enough and you can like, put 10 different smaller, lesser capable models together to get the job done, you just can't control this is somehow
you
like
cannot.
my,
Oh,
yeah, I mean, I
the
don't know enough to talk about it authoritatively, but it just is a question in my head which I'm not able to answer. Can you just control it by regulating the model? Maybe there's more to it.
You
yeah,
just tied into the one of the links I had in the show notes from Alex Zhang, who did the recursive language models. He's he basically said that we are not utilizing the models well enough.
Hmm.
You can actually use the harness to make it smarter and to break down the tasks for us into smaller tasks so that you don't need a super smart big model. You can actually break it down into smaller tasks and let the harness do that. There was even a hot take that they didn't release because they have more research to do on it. But you could do the with a smart harness and an LSTM, which is pre LLM. You
Hmm.
could get the same results as with an LLM. They haven't been able to prove that, but that's one of their theories that they're going to work on next.
Wow. Okay.
Uh,
That makes sense though.
but yeah, so this is about language model harnesses being able to general a model that generalizes because the harness allows it to break down the task and do out of distribution tasks with in distribution weights that are trained into the model. So the model can do things that wasn't trained to do because the harness allows it to do out of distribution tasks that it wasn't trained on. And so those
so it
combinations,
is
that's
how
where the
this
research is.
is this fine tuning then, or how it's different than fine tuning?
No, it's like it's the how you put a harness around the model. So recursive language models is an example of
Mm,
where you basically give it a REPL,
mm,
and in the REPL it can call itself. So it can call it, make another model call recursively, and what it allows you to do is work on a large context. So like
mm.
if you have a file that doesn't fit in the context window, you give it a
Right.
variable to that context, and then it
Mm,
will write code to explore the variable in space with code, and then it can decide whether to it needs to call another model call to break down that task, and you let the model decide as to whether it needs to explore or like chunk off the work and task
mm,
it out. And
mm.
models aren't really trained to do this, so if you actually train a model to work within a recursive language model harness, uh, the intelligence should go up. They've seen in some of the benchmarks that it's actually the this might be the next thing where you get smarter models, more generalized
So are you
models.
saying recursions are better than loops?
Uh, yeah, is didn't you see that it's graphs now, not loops? That's what Steinberger
Yeah.
had said. Like, no, loops are so last month. Now it's graph. So
No, but this is
Love it.
more
I mean,
about
tongue in
also.
cheek.
Yeah, I think like what Rob was saying, there is a distribution of work also going on here, right? It's about
Mm,
taking a larger piece of work, and if you can break it down smartly enough, then you can get it done with a less capable model. And that
yeah.
could be achieved in 100 different ways, but if you can crack it, you can get a lot more extracted out of a smaller model. Uh, I think the idea is definitely something that I agree with, which is I don't think we are putting the model to its fullest capability at all. People don't
Right.
even use the proper like beginning context windows and simple
No, no,
disciplines
they
around it.
most of them are using to summarize their email. But
So
yes.
the Stanford lab that this came out of,
Yeah.
Omar, who runs the lab, he created DSPy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
am.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is a completely different way to think about it. And
Totally
he has
is.
so many smart people. Like
Yeah.
the author of the JEPA paper is also part of his lab,
Hmm.
Mm,
one of his students. Uh, but like all of them are thinking about it in a different way. So like DSPy, you're defining signatures, and you can actually run RLM as part of DSPy, or you can run JEPA. One of the things I actually learned, because the author of the JEPA paper was at AI Engineer and did a talk,
mm, mm,
uh, so you can optimize any string, not not just like your prompt. You can actually
mm.
optimize your skill. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I never thought about that. Like,
Yeah, totally
that's so
is.
awesome.
because it's any,
Yeah.
you just need a data set,
Yeah.
and then you can actually optimize your skill against
Yeah.
the model that you're running it with. And it's, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
it's obvious, but I had just never thought about that. Any string,
Right. Right.
you can use JEPA to optimize it, and
So
DSPy makes it
text
easy.
that makes it text is such a natural language text is such an interesting input, right? It's so flexible and you can do so many stuff with this. All
Yeah,
this while we've been rigid about create a schema, create XML, create all that crap. Turns out a simple text will do.
yeah, and DSPy is just like creating the
Yeah.
prompt for you in between
Yeah.
your input and output.
I love DSPy.
And
Mm,
so it's like optimizing the string, and it's a different.
Hmm.
Everyone tries to optimize their
right.
prompt when you can
Prompt.
just like give it a data set and it will optimize the prompt for you in between what you want
Yeah.
for
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
particular model. So
Yeah. 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 Um, so what should we talk next? There's one story I definitely want to talk before we bail out here. I know we almost an hour here, which is the the whole OpenAI hugging face story. Should we talk about that?
yeah,
Okay. All right. Where am I?
are
Let's
you going to give
share
the
the story.
background?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
behind on
Who?
this, so
I was watching Twitter, and like the first story was Hugging Face used GLM 5.2 to
Yeah.
investigate the incident.
Yeah.
So they had
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
use an open source model
This goes
because
back to this. This goes back to exactly
OpenAI
what you.
and
Mhm.
Anthropic they rejected talking about cybersecurity.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. You were
Okay,
gonna
okay, okay,
say,
okay. Yeah, yeah. No,
yeah.
no, no, it's okay, okay. So, give you a passage. So, OpenAI. I mean, first of all, I appreciate they being open about this, and second, I think there is lots of debate going on. Oh, this is a marketing stunt. It's not. I mean, these models are really, really capable of doing stuff like this. Okay, it's real. So, the OpenAI apparently was using Hugging Space sort of infrastructure to evaluate their model. Okay, one of the thing they do is that called exploit gym. It's a open source cybersecurity benchmark. Okay, developed by UC Berkeley. They've been using their model to sort of see if they can sort of hard exploit, use some of the cybersecurity tasks and see if they can achieve that. And when they run this model, I mean, it just when they test this model, just Rob, keep me honest here, okay? When they test these models, they usually run in sort of an closed environment. So models are not allowed to open internet access and all that. So it's very,
Hmm.
very locked down environment when they're exploring this.
Inside a sandbox that
Sandbox,
they
yeah.
shouldn't be able to escape, but there is definitely lots of things that you
Yeah.
can do that they may not have done as well.
Yeah. So, well, I think to achieve, to exploit one of the benchmark tasks, to complete that task, model essentially, I don't know which one was that, is it Soul or their upcoming model, OpenAI's model, figured out a 0-day vulnerability in one of the internal package registry proxy, gained access to internet through that. This is all model doing, okay, without supervision. It's just trying to, you give it a task, it's trying to complete that task essentially, then escalated into OpenAI's research infrastructure, which the sandbox environment they were using, that gave them access to lateral access to Hugging Face infrastructure, and use that to gain additional credentials from Hugging Face. I think the user
The
credentials. I
even
don't know.
data set that they were running was on it was hosted on Hugging Face, and it
Yeah,
exploited that to get access to actual Hugging
Okay.
Face
right.
infrastructure.
And found a remote code execution path in Hugging Face. So just went in and scanned and stole a bunch of credentials. Now, while this was running, Hugging Face security teams had detected, hey, there is an agent on loose, sort of crashing through this. And now what Rob is saying, that's actually also true. Now, obviously, we cannot use frontier models because they're being safe for us. So Hugging Face had to they use GLM5, or what they use, GLM 5.2, Rob?
Yeah, GLM 5.2. There was a
So
whole article on that before OpenAI said that this happened.
I see. So they use GLM 5.2, which is an open source, open weight model to stop that agent or detect that's happening. So
Wow.
that's the story.
Yeah, no, that was surprising, but not. I don't know. It was because I saw it in real time. I saw the first one, like, oh, we were being cyber attacked,
Mm,
and we had
mhm.
to use GLM 5.2, which all the local model, open weight model people were saying, see, like can't,
Yeah,
can't
told
regulate
you.
these things. You need them for both sides. You need them to
Yeah.
prevent, and people are going to use them to penetrate as well as like to understand what's going on. It's the
It's
same
like
command.
the it's
It's the
like the
exact same
vaccine, right?
command. Yeah.
Take the
So,
virus out.
but then, yeah, then a day later, they came out with this article explaining that was actually OpenAI that was
Wow.
exploiting them, their agent, autonomously. Um, so I, it, it's probably just happened, but again, it's maybe they didn't make it super secure and they wanted this to happen, like,
No,
and
I,
use
I
it as
think
a
these
reason
models,
to
wouldn't you say these
be
models are
regulated.
capable of doing stuff like this? Figuring out security flaws and gaining access? I think
That
so.
was part of the Mythos
Yeah,
system card as well. Is the
yeah,
guy Mythos was running in a sandbox, and the
yeah.
researcher was having a sandwich in a park at lunch, and he got an email from Mythos, and
That's
it
so,
broke out
yeah.
of the sandbox. So it's like now OpenAI OpenAI is showing that they're also able to do it.
I'm right behind you. No,
Yeah,
I think the
but even
mythos thing.
worse.
Yeah, even yeah, mythos thing. I initially was skeptical like you. No way. Then I have some friends work here. You probably know which bank I'm talking about. Work in a large bank in here. They got access to Mythos, and they've been telling me that AI is finding issues that just wild and crazy. There are false positive too. I mean, they're chasing an issue whole day, whole team that realizes it's not an issue, but it actually
Mhm.
found some real issues for them. For bank, it's like a crazy, right?
They have some good problems
Maybe
that you can just set it loose on.
maybe if it is a breaking out of a sandbox is the, how do I say, trial by fire for a model, that should become the
Mm.
benchmark. Put it in a
Can
sandbox
you break out?
and
That's a
then
good
see if it
idea.
breaks out.
Hmm.
Like it's
That's a really
almost
good
like a
idea.
Houdini situation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Eventually, it
yeah,
should be security hardened if it keeps breaking
Yeah,
out, like, yeah.
that'd be interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
I
I
think
think
it's
we.
good when you do find one of these problems though, because something that you can have Fable or Mythos just like churn
Hmm.
on and go off and try to
Yeah,
accomplish a task for hours and say
yeah.
break out of this thing. I was actually using it for that Phoenix architecture where
You got it.
I had it prove that it could recreate a feature based on the assets that we had talked about creating, and it went off and was doing it and fixing it itself, like updating the assets to regenerate it for it was overnight, and then it was like 4 or 5 hours the next day. It was just like I don't know what the total time was, but it was at least like 6 to 8 hours. It was trying to work on this problem,
Did
and
it do it though?
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
So
okay.
I've been experimenting with it, and it looks promising. You have to have the right assets, and there's some other
Well, this is a good experiment. So
agent
you should have
agent alignment
yeah,
that
you
I've
should have
been
a
playing with.
CI
So
job. CI job. The beginning of the job, it will wipe out your code base. Then you need to take your specs, regenerate the code base, and make sure your tests are running. Right?
Classic
yeah,
library situation, right? You don't
Yeah,
yeah,
want to store, you don't want to version control your binaries. So
yeah.
yeah,
You want
it's
yeah.
as good as that.
Probably.
interfaces. You want contracts between domains. Domain-driven design should play into that. Ubiquitous language, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Founder
yeah,
context.
yeah, yeah.
So speaking of that, I again don't mean to do shameless plugs, but that's
Have at
exactly
it.
my work. But yeah, I mean, here's a link. I'll just put that out to Neil so he can, if he wants to share it. Three, four things that happen, right? One is there are two things which I noticed, Rob. Again, correct me what you've experienced is. One is the features themselves. We need to recreate that. The second thing I also realized is I need to have the architecture itself in a sort of permanent fashion so that I can recreate the architecture and not make the mistakes I created before. I need ubiquitous language. I need a lot more. So this whole thing has like a bunch of skills. Like if you scroll all the way down, Neil, you'll notice that it's got yeah, right there. So that's the skill. So there is adversarial authoring. So basically, when you're specking out, you can have like multiple models chime in on the same specification, sort of autocorrect themselves by counsel. Then I think this skill, most of you are familiar with the grill me. Grill me kind of asks you a lot of questions, but I could contextualize it by asking it within the context of a spec. And then like C4 diagrams and architectural decision records, they preserve my decisions and the overall system domain the separation. And ultimately like Gherkin, which I was speaking about earlier, because that becomes my feature description, then I can generate tests out of it and more deterministic output. And glossary is my skill for ubiquitous language so that I can improve the density of my specification. That makes it easy for me to review. Rather than saying like too many words, I can say like less but still communicate consistently. So that's all. That's my factory technically, all put
I
into a
have some
box.
similar skills. I really like that you're using the Gherkin authoring too. Like that is a very good way to define in natural language what your tests are. Uh, I have I have not used them, but I know it is a like it's on my list of things to do. So
Oh yeah, it definitely has like a lot more. Again, it depends on what you want out of it. Gherkin is again specification by example, right? So it does have its
Mhm.
limitations, but to an extent, it does a better job than just plain text. So yeah, there it is. I mean,
It's
in
cool.
EARS, which is a format which the other people use, like I think Kiro uses EARS, easy. requirement specification, that has its own advantages. So yeah, anyway, I'll shut up now. So
No, this all looks like a lot of work, man. I thought we're just gonna vibe code everything.
oh, this
No,
is a
no,
lot
no.
of work.
You have to hand code your own skills. You can't
This is a lot
copy
of work.
somebody else's. I'll tell you why. If you guys,
Why?
maybe I've said this before, but uh, the superpowers Claude Code skill that you can just like install,
Yeah. How do? Yeah, yes.
it has a hook where it injects itself into your context. It says, "Put me before the system prompt, but after the Claude.md and agents.md." And I was like, "This is why it takes over your workflow." And I started
Yeah,
looking at all the prompts. I was like, "Oh, this is like just slop. It's a lot of
Yeah.
repeated stuff." And somebody had built it up. The author had built it up over time, and
All the slots are like that, man.
it just needed to
If
be
one
like
agent is not following
pressed.
one instruction, repeat that over and over again.
Yeah, it was a combination of like it hijacked my context window,
Yeah,
and like it put a lot more in there. I like to use like semantically dense
yeah.
words, like one word
Mm,
that means a lot. Like
mm.
so I rewrote them essentially. I created my own version called Overpowered, but yeah, that's
oh yeah,
We
that's
should
good.
talk about this.
it does
We
not
should talk about
inject
those
it.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does not inject it
Uh,
into your. You just have to know the workflow and use slash commands. So
Oh wow, okay.
Cool. All right, so I think it's a wrap. We've gone way past an hour. Thanks for everyone. Thanks for joining. If you guys have any question, ping us. Obviously, I will post all the clips that come out of this. It was awesome. Like always, nice talking to you guys. Bye.
thanks, guys.
Thank you all.